Hello and welcome to the Busy Mum Show, the show to help mums and their families thrive. I'm your host, Dr. Leonaura Rhodes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Alan Day, and we're going to be talking about taking a vacation with your special needs child. Before I introduce Alan further, just to tell you a little bit about the concept for the show. Now, first to tell you, I'm a mum on a mission to help other mothers and their families thrive. And I've been doing this for several years as a coach. And a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to share my work with even more mothers. And so I wrote a book, Beyond Soccer Mum, Strategies for a Fabulous Balanced Life, which has just been released. And Beyond Soccer Mum contains the best of what I've learned in over 20 years as a physician, coach, neurotherapist, and busy mum. And the next natural step for me was that I wanted to learn from other experts on issues to help other mothers and their families thrive. Now, part of my background is that I was a developmental pediatrician and neurotherapist for many years, and because of that I've worked with many families with special needs children. And time again, they would tell me that they either weren't taking a vacation with their special needs child because it was just too difficult, or when they took one, they often wish they hadn't. So it's a very common issue in the special needs community. And so today I have with me Alan Day, who is an expert on travelling with your special needs child, particularly children with autism. So welcome, Alan. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Leonora. Just by way of background, I've been a professional travel agent for nearly 20 years, but I also have a child on the spectrum.
Yes.
We encountered our own difficulties when travelling with him, and when I looked around to see who was helping this community, I found there was a distinct lack of it.
Absolutely.
I dropped my luxury travel business and specialised from then on in assisting families with special needs.
Yeah.
Autism is my primary expertise, but the issues become one of what's specific unto this family, and I help anybody with any disability wherever I can.
That's great, and Alan and I met probably 2 years ago. I was at a professional group for professionals who worked with special needs families, and it really struck me as a great business model because there is such an incredible need out there, and it's very sad when families feel that that they don't want to take a vacation or that it's just too difficult. So it's an amazing business that you have, Alan. So
well, as recently as this week, I had somebody
Yes.
who said, "Please help us. We haven't had a vacation in 20 years."
Oh my goodness,
That's not
heartbreaking.
uncommon.
Yeah, I'm sure, absolutely. So tell us, what are the most common fears for families when they're planning to take a vacation with their child with autism or other special needs?
The most common, the barrier that surprised me is that people don't want to share the diagnosis with strangers.
Okay.
Now, I understand that. However, we do it every day when we talk to a new therapist or a new physician.
Yeah.
And when you're travelling, it is the travel and hospitality industry. It's important to remember that everybody that you're meeting is looking to give you a great experience.
Yes.
So in reality, if you will share your diagnosis with them, they will step up to the plate and help.
Yes, absolutely. And I think I've heard that from many families who, I think families either tend to go one way or the other. Some families are extremely private and don't like to share the diagnosis with anybody, and then there's other families who, are very happy sharing it with everybody. And I think as long as the approach is not one of, excusing all bad behaviour and all difficulties, but one of, as you say, reaching out and asking for help.
Yeah.
And it's quite extraordinary the help that's sometimes available, and people can be very amenable if you just ask. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The second big fear, and it's particularly, this is with autism rather than other special needs, is worrying about other people's reactions when your child has a meltdown.
Yes.
You can do a couple of things with this. There's a thing out called the autism button, It's a huge, great button, developed by done by a typically developing sibling
Okay.
who was concerned with the reaction of strangers to his younger brother. And this button says, I am not misbehaving, I have autism, please be understanding. That's a little in your face for some people.
Yeah.
The other thing that I like to recommend is try to travel together. Obviously, if you've got a lot of friends all in the same position, that's great. But even if it's one other family, what you get is if your child is having issues, the other family can go to some stranger who's being obnoxious and give them a little education.
That's a really
and
good point.
you know what? If it's their child that's having the difficulties, you do the same for them.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
You're able to deal with your child. The other family's able to go and run interference, if you like, with strangers.
Yeah.
A lot of strangers, if you are able to get across the explanation to them, this is not my child misbehaving. This is one of the things that comes along with the territory with autism.
Yeah.
People suddenly become understanding, whereas before they were critical. The other thing, if you can travel in a large group, is that, and I have this, I have 100 people flying in October down to Disney, and they're all flying together. Now, if a child gets into difficulties on that flight, you're not going to have strangers turning around and glaring. What you're going to have is 3 other mothers leaping up and saying, what help do you need? So there's always value in travelling together in either large or small groups. It really does help.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And then the third fear is just fear of change. As you know, kids on the spectrum can have real issues with change.
Yes.
And for this, I kind of recommend you work to an approach as some things are going to change. Let's avoid the unnecessary changes. As a quick example of that, car rental. You fly to some destination and you rent a car. At home, you drive a big SUV. When you get to the destination, if you rent a subcompact car, not quite the same thing. Try to look for something that's similar in size and style to what you drive at home. That's a little bit of familiarity. You didn't need to introduce that change. At its extreme, and particularly with children that don't sleep well in the first place, every reason to take some familiar bedding, pillows, sheets, etc., and ship them ahead. So the texture and the smell of the bedding is familiar. And again, if you've spoken to the hotel up front, they will let you do that.
Wow, that's good to know.
Look for the things that you can make familiar. The other one is dining out. I don't want to mention any particular chains, but let's say Applebee's. If you look at your destination, there's an Applebee's there. To guarantee there's an Applebee's somewhere near where you are. Go practice eating there 2 or 3 times. When you get there, now you're going to something that is going to look and feel familiar. That, when you've got these points of familiarity, it does give you a slightly better chance of dealing with the bits that are unfamiliar.
No, absolutely. And as you say, particularly with the children with autism, but some of the other children with special needs, that dislike of change is extremely common. And from a neuroscience point of view, that change for children on the spectrum and other special needs children causes an intense stress for them, and they, it's kind of not their fault, but their brain, when they're in that situation and they're feeling this intense uncertainty, then their brain kind of goes into the red mist, and they kind of can't control themselves. So that's a great idea. I love the idea of finding some restaurants and planning that ahead and practicing that, because the menus tend to be fairly similar, don't they?
On some of the national chains, they are exactly the same. But even the decor and the staff uniforms tend to be the same. So you get some considerable familiarity if you can tell the difference between Red Lobster in Danbury, Connecticut, And Red Lobster in Miami, Florida,
Yeah.
good luck. Once you're inside, they are pretty much the same.
Wow, yeah, no, that's a really great point. So, what about flying? A lot of people who don't have autism are scared of flying, but for kids who have autism and are who have special needs, flying is, what an amazingly huge change. I mean, it's just everything's different. So.
Well, I mean, if transitions are difficult,
Yes.
flying involves lots of different transitions.
Yes.
Point number one, your child is familiar with a car.
Yes.
Even if it means driving quite a bit further to be able to arrange non-stop flights,
yes.
compared with going to your local airport and taking connecting flights. Always take the non-stop flight.
Okay, yeah.
You've got an extra ascent, you've got an extra descent. At the wrong airport, you've got to actually exit one terminal and enter another one and go back through security. Let alone if your first flight is running late and your second flight is on time, you either miss it or what was a decent interval for getting from one flight to the other becomes a huge rush. And now you're not just dealing with a transition, you're dealing with a transition where everybody is stressed.
That's very true.
Not a good thing for your child on the spectrum. Not a good thing for a child with mobility issues.
That's true.
Or even come to that, visual issues. All of those things just make that rush from one plane to the other more difficult.
Yes.
Particular thing for kids on the spectrum, which people don't think about. If you take a typical family of four, doesn't work if it's a single mother with one child, but you take a family of four, or instead of taking the airline seat assignment of 4 across the row, ask for seats 2 with 2 in front.
Okay.
A lot of kids on the spectrum, when they're flying, will go in for stimming.
Yes.
And the stimming usually involves kicking the out of the seat in front.
Yes.
If that's a stranger there, you're going to get a complaint.
Yeah.
If it's mum or dad, you kind of know to expect it.
Yes, absolutely.
And there are several things you can do to mitigate some of the stress of flying. One of the factors that I find is it's particularly the ears on 2 issues. Either noise in general or pressure changes. Some kids are sufficiently sensitive to noise, they walk around pretty much all day with noise-cancelling headphones.
Yes.
While you're going to use the same thing on the flight. However, if your child is only occasionally affected by noise, you do want to practice with noise-cancelling headphones first, because they will help you.
It's a great idea. Yeah.
The other thing is pressure changes, which is particularly ascent and descent. There's a great thing out there you can buy from Walgreens, CVS, called earplanes.
Okay.
They're little plastic things that you put into your ear, and they help to adjust the pressure change.
Oh, wow.
Now, you're not going to know until you're up in the air whether they work.
Yes.
But at least you get the chance. They're inexpensive. They're less than $10 a piece.
Wow.
And you get the chance to practice at home, because it is very possible that your child won't tolerate a little piece of plastic being shoved into their ear. And if they won't, you fall back to the other remedies. Again, make sure your child is familiar with as many of those remedies as possible.
Yes.
Because you're not going to know until you're in the air which one is going to work for your child.
Yeah.
If your child never gets to suck hard candy, let them practice.
Yeah.
If your child never gets to drink through a straw, get them to practice. Just practice every possible technique for dealing with those pressure changes.
Yeah. I mean, they're unpleasant for anybody, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's for an adult, for a typically developing child, you can say swallow.
Yes,
swallow.
absolutely. Yes.
That verbal instruction to a kid on the spectrum when they're getting stressed by it
Yes.
is going to be worthless.
Absolutely.
Drink this juice box.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah.
And I particularly love juice boxes. When you're sucking through a straw, you're basically creating pressure changes that equalise out on the ears. If you're using a juice box, and if you're very careful puncturing the seal with the straw, there's actually an airtight seal between the straw and where the seal went in. So now, as you progressively suck down that box, you're sucking against the vacuum, so you have to suck harder and harder to get the delivery,
Yeah.
and that really does help.
Wow, I love that. That's so clever.
But if you poke the straw around and break that seal, then it might just as well have been a glass
cup.
with a straw.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. What about kind of check-in and things? How do you find the airlines? Can people usually get early check-in or rush through security?
You can get anything if you ask.
Okay. Yeah.
One of the things that I do, first of all, if you can check in advance, most airlines offer online check-in.
Yes.
So now when you arrive at the airport, the first thing you do is take your check-in bags straight to the luggage drop-off.
Okay.
But if you don't do that, if there's a reason that you can't do that, speak to your airline ahead of time.
Okay.
Here's something I do for anybody in that situation is say, my child has autism, does not deal well with crowds, does not deal well with long lines.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they are flying in coach class, please may they check in at the business class check-in.
Mm-hmm.
And that can make a huge difference. We actually did it with our own son, where there was a check-in line of well over 100 families in coach and 3 families in business class.
Great.
And we had permission to check in at business class first.
Yes.
It is as well to seek permission first, because if you otherwise turn up at business class, somebody's going to say, well, you're in coach.
Yes.
Off you go.
Yes. All you need is one person to not be understanding.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you've asked the airline first, it's in the record, and you just quietly say to them, I understand we're flying in coach, please would you look at the record?
Yeah.
Your reservations department gave us permission to be here.
That's great.
The other thing that you can do with security is you can call TSA Cares and ask for a passenger support specialist.
Okay.
You will actually get an assigned person from TSA to guide you through security.
Wow.
You're still going to be screened. You're still going to go through all of the normal procedures.
Mm-hmm.
But if your child won't stand still long enough for the full body scan, they will arrange to open up the old line with the old metal detector.
Oh, wow.
On the other hand, you might not want the old metal detector, because if it does set off a sound, the sound might be alarming.
Sure.
You might be better off with the full body scanner and make a game of it.
Yeah.
Either way, if you speak to your passenger support specialist and tell them which is going to work for you, they will arrange that.
Wow.
And it's dependent upon what else. Anybody at TSA will let you through with something like an EpiPen.
Okay.
Provided it's in its sealed packaging, and provided you get a doctor's notes to say that it's medically necessary.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you haven't got the passenger support specialist, you might need to explain that a couple of times to the person that you're dealing with. If you've got a passenger support specialist assigned, they'll know about that in advance. They'll know the rules on that.
Yeah.
They'll take a look at it and get you straight through.
It sounds like they can really make that whole process, which is very stressful.
There's no guarantee that it will be quicker.
Yes.
But
yeah.
But let me give you the example of a client that I had fly out on December 31st.
Yeah.
Heavily traffic day from Terminal 4 at JFK. That's the one with all the airlines, the one with the most chaos.
Okay.
From curbside until the far side of security took them 15 minutes.
Wow.
So it can speed things considerably.
Yeah.
And of course, the other thing, there's a great program out there. Everybody should look for it if it is in their area. There's a program called Wings for Autism.
Okay.
This involves, probably on a Saturday morning, 10, 20, 30, 100 families all turning up at the airport and doing a practice of going all the way through the procedure. Practice check-in, practice going through security, practice waiting at the gate, practice getting on board the aircraft, putting seatbelts on, having a little snack, and then flight doesn't go anywhere, but then they practice deplaning and going to bag plane. If you can find one of those in your area, infinitely worthwhile.
Gosh, yes.
And if you have to, practice 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
The most frequent of those programs is in Minneapolis, of all places.
Okay.
And is once a month.
Yeah.
Lots of the other places are twice a year.
Okay. Yeah. So that's definitely worth planning ahead for that.
And that program is being rolled out nationally, so it will come to an airport near you eventually.
Wow, that's really impressive. Okay, so that's flying. What about choosing a destination to take your child with autism or on special needs?
Okay, if you're
Yeah.
a typically developing family, your
Mhm.
choices become easy. You're choosing a destination around what do we want to do when we get there.
Yeah.
You know which activities are good, and you can tell very easily up front which activities will work that we've never tried before. What would we like to do that's new?
Yeah.
You know that. It becomes easy. With a child on the spectrum, you know they love this activity. That's a certainty.
Yes.
There will be something. Obviously, you've got to find a destination where you can do that.
Yeah.
Then comes, but what new activities do we want to try? And it's, as you know, it's a very hit and miss affair. Stuff that is unpredictable. They'll suddenly find that you are very good at and love. So the real art there is to find a place that offers as many activities as possible.
Yeah.
Because now you can try them. If it doesn't work, you just move on to the next one until you find something. If you can find a new activity that your child loves and is good at, the payback is fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's we've had children that took to ice skating.
Wow.
Children that took to paddleboarding. This is where you stand up on the surfboard and paddle.
That looks so difficult.
And a lot of kids on the spectrum have issues with balance and body awareness. But some of them, even with those issues, suddenly it takes that, and not only do they enjoy it, but it's actually in its own way therapeutic because they are able to do something that does involve some balance and some body awareness. And it helps them to develop those skills.
Wow, yeah.
Just that path, but you need the variety.
Yes, that's
so that you can find what's the one thing that my child is interested in.
Yeah. And often, when talking to families, they say that, their child is quite rigid and has a very narrow range of interests, but the time that they're most likely to discover something new is when they're on vacation, as you say. So that's a great thing when you're planning. Yeah.
But if your child is rigid and has very narrow interests, try to look for something where you can have that.
Yes.
Plus the other activities.
Yeah.
Because if you take away that one rigid must-have activity, then you'll struggle with the others.
Yes.
If you've got that as an anchor, now you're able to try other things.
That's a great idea. Okay, so many children, especially children with autism, tend to wander. And I actually worked as a teacher's assistant for a couple of years when my kids were younger, and I worked with a child with quite severe autism who, he wasn't a wanderer, he was a runner. And he used to abscond from school all the time, and I got very good at jumping over fences, and I learned very early on not to wear long skirts because it was very hard to jump over fences then. It's very common in children on the spectrum and children with learning difficulties for them to wander. What would you recommend to families for that?
There are a number of things you can do, and it's a spectrum. Some children are very prone to this,
yes,
and some it's less frequent. If your child is very prone to it at home, you probably already have one of these GPS devices.
Okay.
But it is as well to look at what device you have and what service you have. Some of the older ones were only locators.
Okay.
I now understand that there are some very up-to-date and swisher modern ones that will establish what they call a geofence. And you can set the boundaries so that this thing will trigger an alarm if your child goes beyond those boundaries.
Yeah.
But as I say, I believe that's only on the most modern equipment.
Yes.
If it's a particular issue, that's probably worth investigating.
Yes.
Taken at the other end, it's the simplest thing that I've ever come across. Some good friends of mine had a practice that they were doing art therapy for kids. Their location was fairly close to a busy main road, and they had problems with kids running off. And no matter how many times they told them, don't go outside the door, it's dangerous, etc., etc., kids would keep running off.
Mm-hmm.
They took the simplest possible approach. They printed out a stop sign and put it on the door.
Okay.
That ended the issue.
Okay. Wow.
No, just that visual
Yes.
stop.
Yeah.
And that kind of ended it.
Wow.
Then there are other things in the middle that you can do, depending on where you're staying. You don't want a room near the exit to a hotel that's sited next to a 4-lane highway with nothing between the front door and the highway.
Yeah.
If wandering off is an issue, work with the hotel to find out which rooms are located furthest from a point of exit, just to slow the child down and to give you more opportunity to find them and catch up with them.
Yes.
So those are a couple of things that you can do.
Great ideas.
It's you can also, if it is an issue, you can brief the hotel up front. They all have decent security staff.
Yes.
And if need be, bring a photo of your child and leave it with security up front.
Yes.
My child hopefully will not wander off.
Yeah.
If they do, this is what they look like. Please don't stand in front of them. You'll go back.
Yes.
Please quietly approach them.
That's a good point.
But you can brief security staff ahead of time if need be.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse. My youngest son, when he was about 9, we went to a big hotel, and all of the buildings were identical. And my husband took him to the restaurant, and he was being all independent. And my husband said, "Why don't you go back and get Mum and your brother?" And he came back to get us, but he went into the wrong building. He was missing for over an hour, and we called security. I mean, it was just the most horrible. And, he's not a child on the spectrum. So if there's anything that can ruin a vacation, it's, losing your child's not a good thing.
Well, losing a child that doesn't communicate well is kind of tough.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can do, depending upon their tolerance for wearing it's as a wrist strap or even something attached to a piece of clothing. You can put some options there for somebody finding your child.
Yes. Yeah.
This is my child, Joe. He has autism. He's not going to be able to tell you.
Yes.
This is my cell phone number. If you find him wandering around, please call me and tell me where you are. Yeah. And just have that attached to a piece of clothing where it's not going to get removed.
That's a really good idea. In fact, when we went to Disney with my sons, we wrote our phone number on their arms. Because it's such a big place, it's so easy to get lost. Okay, so why is it better for families to use a professional travel agent than, it's kind of easy nowadays to go and book a vacation on Expedia or something like that. Why would you advise families with a special needs child to seek professional travel agent help?
It's first of all, any travel agent has access to all of the things that you as a member of the public have access to, and possibly some means of finding stuff that you don't.
Yes.
I use one particular booking engine fairly frequently where it shows me all of the best web prices and a couple of alternatives that either are the same price or better.
Okay, yeah.
And just are not available on the web. So they should be able to, price should not be a factor, they should be able to find you the same price.
Okay.
You're trying to plan for several unfamiliar steps. And if you've got somebody with professional experience, they will know what those steps are.
Yeah.
They will anticipate, the car rental example. That may be the least expensive car rental, but their site is off-site and you're going to need a shuttle bus to go there, which is an extra transition. This car rental company, it's not very much more expensive, and their facility is within the terminal.
Okay, yes.
One less transition.
Yeah.
This will be somebody who knows these things and can plot those through in advance. And then go back to the share the diagnosis.
Yeah.
How many people do you need to share your diagnosis with? If you booked it through a travel agent, one.
Yes, good point.
So it's they will be able to help you, and it's you're not costing extra. You're getting somebody with professional expertise, and dependent upon the destination, you may also get somebody with contacts that you could not possibly make.
Yeah.
I had a client, child would eat anything in the world as long as it was white.
Gosh.
Which that's not a challenge. You can always feed a child like that. But getting nutrients into this child can be challenging.
My word, yeah.
How did the mother deal with this when she got there? I have the contact. I picked up the phone to the executive chef for the resort.
Wow.
Explained the issue. His first reaction was the natural one. Well, there's plenty of white food.
Yeah.
I said, hold it, step back, think about nutrients.
Yes.
And then the reaction was, I now understand.
Okay.
Please put the mother in contact with me. Please have her tell me all of the things that she is able to sneak into white food to get nutrients into this child.
Yeah.
I have way more facilities than she does.
Yeah.
There's nothing that she does that I can't do. But if she meets with me when she gets here, I'll show her 3 or 4 other alternatives that may work, that we could try, and if they do work, she'll be able to take those ideas home with her.
Yeah, yeah.
It would have taken forever to make that contact.
Yes.
If you were able to do. Happened to be a resort that I knew very well.
Yeah.
And so literally, I was able to pick up the phone and get directly through to the executive chef.
Yeah.
And have them understand that this was somebody who was not messing him around. It was somebody that was serious. He knows me. He knows that I send lots of clients there.
Yeah.
So I immediately had that credibility that somebody else wouldn't do.
Yeah, gosh, absolutely. And with your expertise of the world of autism and special needs, I mean, you must have a vastly wider knowledge than most travel agents do, and as you said, there's contacts as well. It's just
of course. I mean, realistically, you can book it for yourself.
Yes.
You can book with any travel agent. You can book with a travel agent that understands special needs.
Yes.
They may not directly have experience of autism, but it's a mindset.
Yeah.
They are used to finding out what are the particular issues, and even if it's ones that they've never come across before, they at least will then be able to respond.
Yeah.
And of course, ultimately, if you have a child on the spectrum and you can find a travel agent that has experience of travelling with autism, that's the best of all.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great.
But one way or the other, get a professional on the job. It doesn't cost more, and you will get more help. Yeah,
I mean, it's a great advocacy service that that families really need that bit of expert help in what can end up being a very stressful situation. And vacations are meant to be fun and relaxing and all of that. So, well, thank you so much, Alan. That's really incredible advice. Tell us how the audience can get hold of you, and I know your website has a lot of resources on it, and you blog regularly about travelling with special needs children.
Yes, I try to publish as often as once a week, but have to admit that I can't get to that. I guarantee to publish at least once a month.
Okay.
I try to make the content so that some stuff is of help to all travellers.
Yes.
But we'll then say, now here are the special considerations you need for travelling with autism or other special needs.
Yeah.
And what distinguishes the things that you need to look for in that situation compared with the general public.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's somewhere between once a week and once a month.
Yes.
And it's Anybody that subscribes to that, I make them the guarantee that I never share their email with anybody.
Sure, yeah.
Because don't we all get way too many emails?
Oh, goodness, yeah.
And the other thing I promise them is that there's never a sales content to it. It is
Yeah.
always advice.
Sure, that's great.
So the best approach to it is to go to my website,
Yes.
which is asdvacations.com.
Yeah.
Autism spectrum disorder,
Mhm.
obviously.
Yeah.
And then just click on the button that says blog.
Okay.
That will get you to the latest post and to the archives and recent posts.
Yeah, that's great. And Alan also shares on Facebook, don't you? So
Yes.
that's another way to contact you.
On Facebook and LinkedIn, don't
Yes.
we all have to be on those?
Yeah.
I have to confess I've got perhaps a dozen followers on Twitter because I've never really understood it.
Yeah. That's Twitter's like the ADHD of social media for me. It's just too brief and scattered for me. So thank you so much. That's just incredibly useful information for all those families watching who have a child with autism or special needs. Thank you so much, Alan. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share and subscribe. And I'm sure that if you have a child with special needs, you'll know many other families who would benefit from watching this video. And if you'd like to watch more episodes of The Busy Mum Show, head on over to thebusymumshow.com and subscribe for regular email updates. Again, I won't share your information with anybody else. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all a very happy summer and a positive vacation with your child. Thanks for watching.